Greetings. I hope this video finds you well, although if you're preparing for the LSAT, the likelihood of that is probably not too high. And again, that's not me trying to rub it in, that's me speaking from experience. I've been there, I've been on the grind, I know exactly what it feels like, and that's why I really wanted to record this video today, in hopes of helping those of you who are currently preparing for the LSAT and find yourself struggling with the logical reasoning section of the exam. Obviously, the logical reasoning section makes up the majority of the test, comprising 2 of the 4 scored sections. So if you're struggling with logical reasoning, obviously you're probably struggling with the LSAT as a whole. So in this video, what I want to do is talk about my personal experience with the logical reasoning section and what allowed me to finally get over the hump and get to the point where I was really accurate and my timing was right, so I could be in a position to score 170 on my real LSAT. Now, I started off extremely low. On my first practice LSAT, I scored a 148. Eventually, though, I got to the point where I was stuck in the mid-160s. Again, games was always my strongest section, so I was banking on getting a perfect there. Reading comp would fluctuate, again, because I also fell into the trap of not really practicing reading comp as much as I should, so my score would fluctuate there. If you see your score fluctuating in reading comp, don't forget to practice it on a consistent basis. But my issue was logical reasoning. I was missing 5 to 6 per section, and it wasn't really a question type or strategy or concept that was bothering me. It was just careless mistakes on all different types of questions. And again, 5 to 6 per section. And to have a realistic chance of breaking 170, I had to get down to 2 or 3. So I want to talk about the epiphany that I had and what allowed me to finally get over that hump. So hopefully if you're in that position, you can utilize these tricks or techniques and get yourself to the position that I was able to finally get myself in. Now, you want to approach every single logical reasoning stimuli the exact same way, okay? And again, I can't stress that enough. You're going to do this methodically, like a robot. There is no other way, okay? So do this, and I promise you the exam will start to make sense. If you're having issues with accuracy, if you're having issues with timing, focus on this strategy, and I promise you, you will see results. Now, every stimulus that you encounter on the LSAT is either going to be a set of facts or an argument. The vast majority of these are arguments, and that's what I'm primarily going to talk about right now, because with set of facts, there's nothing for us to do. When we encounter a set of facts, we're pumped, right? We go straight to the question stem, dive into those answer choices, and let's find the correct answer. Obviously, if we encounter sufficient and necessary conditions in our set of facts, we're going to want to diagram those, write the contrapositives, extract the pure logic, because we know in a vacuum 2 plus 2 is always 4, and we're always going to find the correct answer. What about when I encounter an argument? So this is the key step, because what ends up happening is students get caught in this trap of the time pressure, and it's obviously extreme. The time pressure is no joke. Even when I broke 170 on my real LSAT, I was under extreme time pressure. It's completely natural. The exam is designed that way. The test makers don't like you. They don't want to see you succeed, and that is why they've created the LSAT. I realize it's a difficult time probably for you guys, but again, the sacrifice, the hard work is going to pay off. So going back to when we encounter an argument, when you rush through the stimulus and dive into the answer choices and you're just sitting there debating between A, is it B, is it B, is it A, I'm not sure, I got to go back, read the stimulus again, I'm wasting more time, then you start freaking out and the whole world collapses, right? It's all over. Instead of doing that, take a moment and pause. Identify the conclusion of the argument. And by identify, I mean underline it. I want you to easily be able to reference what this author's conclusion is. What is the point he's trying to make to you? And then ask yourself, okay, well, what is the support that the author is providing in support of this conclusion? Because what the test is doing is it's testing your ability to think critically. They're presenting you with arguments that are obviously, the vast majority of them are flawed, and they're hoping that you can see why. Well, the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you clearly understand the argument that they're presenting to you. And this is the key step. So instead of rushing to the stimulus, pause, argument, set of facts. Set of facts, nothing to do. Argument, break it down. What is the conclusion? Underline it. Identify the support that the author gives you for that conclusion and try to start thinking critically about it. That is the skill they're testing. That's apparently what you're going to do as lawyers. You're going to be critical thinkers. So let's get into that habit now. And this strategy is going to allow the exam to click for you. you're going to start seeing the patterns, the way the test makers try to trick you and trap you. If you understand the argument, you're going to find the correct answer. Your timing will improve, your accuracy will improve, and you'll be well on your way to getting over that hump and breaking 170 and gaining admission to a top law school and going on and doing wonderful things with your career. Trust me, I've been there. Again, I started off at a 148. I was able to score 174. I gained admission to Harvard Law School, where I graduated in 2010. It's doable. You can do it. It's not going to be easy, though. You have to practice and you have to approach your prep the correct way. Employ this strategy on logical reasoning. I have a feeling you'll find it extremely useful. We'll also walk through some examples at the end of this video so you can see firsthand how this strategy is actually used in practice. And then hopefully you can take it, use it on your practice LSATs, and get yourself to the point you want to be by the time your real LSAT rolls around. I hope you found this video useful. I'm Mehran Abdullahi, signing off from LSATMax.
Question 4. Consumer. The latest Connolly report suggests that Oxenfree's prepackaged meals are virtually devoid of nutritional value. But the Connolly report is commissioned by Danto Foods, Oxenfree's largest corporate rival, and early drafts of the report are submitted for approval to Danto Foods' Public Relations Department. Because of the obvious bias of this report, it is clear that Oxenfree's prepackaged meals really are nutritious. Alright, so first step, argument of facts. Clearly we have an argument. It is clear, our structural indicator, so our conclusion is that Oxenfree's prepackaged meals really are nutritious. And how do we know that these prepackaged meals really are nutritious? Well, the Connolly report suggested that they were virtually devoid of nutritional value. But this report was commissioned by Danto Foods, Oxenfree's largest corporate rival, and the early drafts of the report are submitted for approval to Danto Foods' Public Relations Department. So clearly there's a bias in this report. It was commissioned by Danto Foods, Oxenfree's largest corporate rival. So the consumer takes this bias to conclude not that we can question the accuracy of the Connolly's report on Oxenfree's prepackaged meals, but rather that Oxenfree's prepackaged meals really are nutritious. So again, these are the premises. Basically that the report is biased, that showed that they were devoid of nutritional value. Therefore, the prepackaged meals are nutritious. Clearly, this is a flawed argument. The correct conclusion would be that one could question the accuracy of the Connolly report's findings because they are clearly biased. But one cannot take that evidence of bias to conclude the opposite, that they are really nutritious, right? This would be equivalent to me saying Philip Morris did a study showing that nicotine is not addictive, but clearly Philip Morris has a financial interest in making such a claim, therefore nicotine is addictive. You notice that is flawed logic. I could say that we could question the accuracy of Philip Morris's study, but we cannot jump to the opposite of what the findings show. And in this case, the findings showed that it was virtually devoid of nutritional value. I take a bias to conclude that the meals really are nutritious. So going to the question stem, the reasoning in the consumer's argument is most vulnerable to criticism on the grounds that the argument most vulnerable to criticism. So this is an errors of reasoning question, asking us to identify the flaw in the argument. So let's take a look at A. Treats evidence that there is an apparent bias as evidence that the Connolly report's claims are false. And you notice that A is exactly what we talked about. It takes the bias to conclude not that the Connolly report's claims could be questioned, but rather that they are false, devoid of nutritional value, to conclude that the meals really are nutritious, obviously saying that it's false, that they are virtually devoid of nutritional value. So A here would be the correct answer. However, let's quickly check the remaining answer choices. B draws a conclusion based solely on an unrepresentative sample of Oxenfree's products. And you notice that doesn't apply because both our conclusion and our evidence, the support, right, the premise, are about Oxenfree's prepackaged meals. So it is not based on an unrepresentative sample. The report was about prepackaged meals. Our conclusion was about prepackaged meals. So B is out. Moving to C, fails to take into account the possibility that Oxenfree has just as much motivation to create negative publicity for Danto as Danto has to create negative publicity for Oxenfree. Again, completely irrelevant. This is not about what Oxenfree has a motivation to do or not to do. It's about taking this study commissioned by Oxenfree's largest corporate rival and conclude that what it finds about Oxenfree's products is actually untrue. So C is out. D fails to provide evidence that Danto's Foods prepackaged meals are not more nutritious than Oxenfree's are. And true, it does fail to provide evidence that Danto's Foods prepackaged meals are not more nutritious than Oxenfree's are. But that's not a flaw in logic. This conclusion is not about Danto's Foods. It's about Oxenfree's products. So D does not apply. And then lastly, checking E, presumes, without providing justification, that Danto Foods' public relations department would not approve a draft of a report that was hostile to Danto's Foods products. And E clearly doesn't apply. The consumer does not do that, so E would be eliminated. Again, A, exactly what we saw here. Just because Philip Morris does a study that shows nicotine is not addictive doesn't mean I can take that to conclude that nicotine is addictive.